Welcome to this session of the Ancestral Healing Summit. I'm Lisa Bonis, your host. My guest for this session is Desiree DeMars. Our topic today is sacred symbols and reading the bones, the ancient universal language that guides us through our ancestral healing journey. Desiree DeMars is an artist, BQH hypnotist, and shamanic practitioner. Through a spontaneous soul remembering of a lifetime as a medicine woman, the world of shamanism opened new understandings about our true nature and led to a divination process known as reading the bones that has become the foundation of her practice. She's here with us today to talk about that and many more things. Desiree, thank you so much for being here today. I can't wait to get started. Welcome.
Yeah, me too, Lisa. I'm really excited. So let's just dive right in.
Yeah. Well, for people who may not have seen you, we've had conversations before in various summits, but for people who are new to what you do, when did you discover this, the process of reading the bones, and how has it actually informed your journey with ancestral healing?
Yes. Well, it was really just a natural process of, being in my own, my own evolutionary process, I guess I would call it, of that initial experience, which was really deep about with nature spirits, with having a recall. It was a spontaneous journey, and I didn't really understand it, but I had a recall. I was living in the canyon way up at the top of the mountain at the dead end road in Malibu, California at the time. And I had this profound experience. And as it started to unfold, which actually started, I had no idea. I knew very little about shamanism. I'd heard of it, but I never explored it or studied it. But I had this direct experience actually with an ancient cactus up there, and what little did I know at the time, but I understood later that when I had this experience of really like looking into where the needle goes into the cactus, it's an entry point, right? And that is a classic shamanic journey, often taught too. Once you start getting into shamanism, is you learn to go into water or go into a tree, go into the root system. You're going into you're like going through this tunnel, so to speak. And so when I had that experience, and then that week after, started sharing with people how profound it was and the memories that came through. Other people who were more versed in shamanism than myself just said, "Phew, you had a spontaneous journey experience." It was a shamanic experience. And so then I thought, I need to explore that more so that I understand what this information meant, or means to me. And so, of course, once I started, I started reading about it. I started studying a little bit with somebody in New Mexico. And then lo and behold, one of your other dear, dear teachers, who's a dear friend of mine now, after many years of studying with Sandra Ingerman, she came into my life. So Sandra came into my life, and then it was just really natural. I just knew. It's like, oh, I don't know where this is taking me, but I just know that this is what I need to do. And then, of course, through all of the years of my own initiations, then which evolved into traveling around the world, studying with native shamans and seeing how they practice, and then many of which didn't even speak English, and having to kind of just receive from initiations, ceremonies, and my own experience again, it just evolved into understanding more and more the importance of ancestral healing, and realizing that, our ancestral patterns and experiences are everything, right? They're our foundation for what I call kind of like our blueprint, our blueprint that we came into. The soul came in with a mission, with a vision, whatever you want to call it. And our ancestral lineage is a huge part of that, right? So it just naturally evolved as the more initiatory work I did. I understood that, this is a big piece, knowing your ancestral lineage work, and which I know, that's a big part of what excites you about shamanic work is your ancestral lineage.
Absolutely. So then reading the bones. I mean, I just love how that sounds. It always reminds me of the movie Willow, where they throw down the bones and they see whether Willow should go on this journey. And that's really about all I know about reading the bones.
Oh,
Talk about,
okay.
how did you learn? Where did you learn? And how does this work? And then I would love it if you would do a demonstration, maybe a sort of a group reading for everybody who's watching this.
Absolutely. That's what I've got planned, and I'm really excited to do that. Just briefly, historically, reading the bones, it can also be, it's a divination process. I actually learned about divination through many years ago. I lived in Chicago. I was doing energy work, I was teaching yoga, and I had a couple of clients who were a priest and a priestess in the practice called Ifa, which is an African um, system. And it's similar to this. They don't read bones, but they use coconut shells and they use other kinds of nuts. And so I had the joy and the pleasure of like working with these people very directly. They were kind of became like part of my extended family. And so that was my first experience and understanding about divination and how you could use it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be bones. It can be an object, which you'll see when I've got an overhead camera this year. We're going to see what these kind of look like from a bird's eye view. But they could be anything, shells, any kind of object or anything you pick up, even pieces of nature. It could be wood, it could be bone, it could be glass, a bead, something of significance, maybe that was given to you, a charm, something like that. Because in ancient times, they used all kinds of things. They used tea leaves. They used, we know the I Ching, right? They used a coin. They used sticks. So it's really this is why I say like the symbols are actually a language. So they're a way, they're a representation, if you will, like even of a frequency. It's like as if they are, notes in a musical score, right? So these pieces have a vibration or a message, an understanding, and they are relaying that to you by you having a direct experience with them. And then, of course, if you are studying to read the bones, or I call them sacred symbols, because I actually didn't go to Africa to train. I ended up training with somebody I met in my training programs with Sandy, and she had gone to Africa over the course of about 15 years and was initiated as a Sangoma. So it's another African, it's a Zulu practice. And the foundation of their practice, and this one too, does include some bones. Now, I know others from South America that only use bones, and there's many others. I think there's even voodoo, voodoo, they'll use just bones. My collection is a lot of bones for ancestors, and then I also have other objects that have come to me. So when anybody is studying how to read the bones or how to learn divination, and many of us know about divination through cards, reading tarot cards. When you're doing an initiatory process with that, you are creating a relationship. It's just like somebody would dive into plant medicine. And what you're really doing, you're not just sitting there, yes, you're receiving, but you are interacting. Ideally, you're having a relationship with this energy, with this entity. And so the same as with the bones or the symbols, you start to develop a relationship with each object that you have. So it's almost like you go through these miniature little initiations with understanding kind of this direct language and information or wisdom teaching that this piece has for you. So that's kind of in a nutshell what reading the bones is. And of course, the ones that we're going to focus on a little bit today is the ancestors. We want to look at our ancestors and say, just get some wisdom from these ancestors about this kind of overall pattern or connection, relationship, and how it plays out in the bigger picture. so that they can help guide us along the way. Because what we know through science now, right? And I know we're going to talk about this a little after we do the reading is, through epigenetics and other scientific studies, we're learning, as we learn about consciousness in the brain, is that they're related, they're interwoven, right? And they are assisting us in understanding really what this unfolding or this evolutionary process even is of our DNA. We're starting to understand this symbolically. So, and science is then saying, oh, this is real, which is wonderful, which I get really excited about when I see how science is actually almost like rediscovering what shamans knew hundreds of thousands of years ago, right? I think it's coming around like a full circle because our understanding of the universe and the cosmos is changing, right? As we are evolving as humans and our research and understanding about our environment and the world we live in, we are just like, we're making leaps and bounds, right? It's like quantum leaping with our understanding of what the universe really is. And we'll talk a little bit more about how I see that after we do the reading.
Okay, great. So then when we're doing this, this is for everybody who's watching this, whether they're watching it as it airs or later on, everybody is included in the field of this reading. And so what we're going to talk about today, you asked me before we started to sort of set an intention, and what I would like to ask is ancestral healing is becoming mainstream. It used to be something that, it was kind of hard to find information about, and there were fewer people doing the work. And now we're sort of starting to bubble up into the mass consciousness. And so I'm just wondering then, the ancestors, they must be really jazzed about this. What do they have to say to those of us who are here for this specific reading? Do they have encouragement? Do they have advice? What do they want us to know?
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's very inclusive. Yes, because this, what we do know about, once you get into understanding shamanism, and this shows up through divination, is that we are expanding our awareness, our perception of what is real. And we know that this reality that we're in is only one dimension. So one of the beauties of divination, I think it helps us kind of tap into our imagination a little, which is really where so much power lies. If you look at kids, they're in innocence and awe, right? It brings us back to that place where when we can kind of tap into that innocence and trust our imagination, we can expand out into this field, as you said, which is like often called to the knowing field. I call it the knowing field, or the scientifically, some people are trying to, get into this idea of the noosphere or the noosphere. And so, yeah, we're wanting to expand our sensibility. So I invite everybody here as we go into the reading to, if you can, use your imagination, that we're just not looking at something that's flat. We're actually we're looking at something that's holographic. And the idea I want you all, in which I'll walk us through this, we'll do a short invocation to get us all into alignment. And what I love to use, because of its simplicity, is Spirit just said to me one day, hey, everything, if you want to get it down to the real nuts and bolts, it's like I am. If you think of an I am process as, the metaphor for I is the intention. So we're all going to hold an intention together based on what you shared and what you said, which was beautiful for all of us. And then we are going to place our attention on these pieces and, unify or unite that intention with the attention. And then here's where the beauty of the, this idea of imagination or the magic kind of comes in, is it's all about motion. I am. M is motion, and this is sometimes I think what we forget, that everything is in motion. What we know for sure, the only thing that we actually know is everything is evolving, right? Everything is moving and everything is changing. So we have to remember too, even though we're going to look at some objects on a flat surface, if you could think of it as it's holographic, and use your imagination a little, and also think of like your ancestors are literally here, like on a timeline that isn't just one dimensional, but we're looking at the past. We're sitting here in the present. And then because we're changing the way we look at these things, we are literally changing our future. Right? And we're infusing this present moment with our heart's desire, our vision of the future. So that's how I invite you to look at this, even though we're going to look at it on a camera and it's going to look, kind of flat. But try to imagine. I think this is the beauty to me too of bone readings, and when you're working with objects and symbols that are three-dimensional, that they are, you're looking at it and you can kind of almost imagine that, right? Like this, we're not talking about something flat and, just goes from A to B. We're talking about something that has multi-dimensions to it, and it's affecting many things and many points of space simultaneously. So I invite you to kind of put your magician's hat on too a little bit and just dive into the magic of your own imagination and how it relates to your ancestors and whatever we talk about, whatever elements come up in the reading. So how's that sound?
Sounds perfect. I will
Okay.
follow your lead.
All right, great. So what I'll do for the invocation is I'll just rattle a few seconds at the end so you can hear what I'm saying throughout the invocation. And I'm going to lead everybody. I'm going to invite you now to get yourself really comfortable or centered wherever you are. You can close your eyes and feel yourself grounding into the cushion that you're sitting on, the chair that you're in, and begin to find a place of stillness just for a moment so you can become aware of your tailbone sinking down deeper and deeper into that chair or cushion. Just allowing a moment, a pause there to take a break from any thoughts or any analysis about what's to come, what we're going to experience, and stay with the breath. In fact, if you can take at least a couple of breaths in through the nose and hold for a moment, I like to say, like, the power is in the pause of the breath. Anybody who studied yoga knows the power is in the pause. And then as you exhale, just release any tension from the body, release any external thoughts out of the mind. And we're also activating the vagus nerve. So we are helping to bring this alignment internally that is allowing all of our nerves and the nervous system itself to come into coherence between the heart and the mind, or the heart and the head. And so as you open up to this idea of imagination that we're going to play with a little bit here during the reading. Imagine a brilliant white light coming down from the heavens and anchoring us all the way down to the center of the earth. And as you get down to the center, we are connecting to this divine feminine, the Pachamama, this energy of divine creativity that brings vital life force to everything. And it is an iron molten core. So if you can imagine, that iron core literally lives within each of us through our red blood cells. Our hemoglobin is activated with iron. And so now we're in alignment with Mother Earth, with this idea that we are a creator, right? We are co-creating and bringing this vital life force into everything that we do, because naturally, just if you feel yourself grounding and anchoring into the earth, it fills up with this life force and then naturally flows right back up through you. And that very central channel within you is bringing in that life force to activate all of your chakras. So now all of our chakras are open, fully functioning, front and back, balanced and aligned. And as that happens just naturally, you don't have to do anything about it. I just invite you to notice how when you're filling up and all of your chakras are opening, you can tune in to this beautiful toroidal field that is here surrounding you, expanding up, down, and in every direction. In fact, our heart has its own toroidal field, and we're aligning again. We're coming into coherence, that heart and our head together. And then another element, as that field expands, I'd like you to imagine the emotional aspects of the chakras: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and white again, spilling out, bringing this rainbow energy of activation, and also bringing in this element of emotional joy, peace, and strength, courage at the heart, gratitude, humility, and divine love. So that now you're a vibrating hologram of energy, right? That's expanding out into the unknown, the great mystery, or the field of knowing, that knowing field of all that is, of all that is. And then one last thing, I'd like you to imagine this beautiful golden light above. It's like a golden grid that surrounds everything. It's woven through everything. It's like that electrical force field that's in everything, and feel it coming down through the central channel now that you've opened within you. And just feel that expanding and merging with this rainbow light. Now you have this beautiful golden grid of light, and we're literally woven into this field, this tapestry of knowledge, wisdom. And then we're holding in our hearts this beautiful intention that Lisa shared to ask the ancestors, right? And we'll do that through calling in the elements of creating a sacred space here too for this ancestral wisdom, this ancestral knowledge, by calling in all of the directions: the east, the south, the west, the north, above, below, and the middle. And to all of the elementals, we invite you in. Come and be with us into the sacred circle that we've created: earth, air, fire, water, ether, plasma, neutrinos, gammas, and all those elements yet unknown to man. Come and be with us in this sacred circle, bringing us knowledge, wisdom, understanding about our ancestral lineage, even just one nugget of light, of understanding. Come and be with us. All of our guides, angels, teachers, guardians, the magical, the mystical, the seen, the unseen, the two-legged, four-legged, many-legged, the winged ones, the finned ones, and the creepy crawlers. Come and be with us. Sit in the sacred circle as we ask for the ancestors to come forward, so that all of our ancestors are included in the sacred circle. Those who've gone before us, lived a good life, and transcended, and are now here working on our behalf. And to all of those whose names we do not know, but whose blood runs through our veins, come and be with us. Bring us this guidance, understanding, and wisdom that we can take and move forward through our I Am presence here today, and these magical symbols and pieces that are a part of this divination today. And then just taking one last thought of all of the beauty, all of the information that is received today. May we be the highest and brightest vibratory frequency that we can be, so that not only will this information benefit us, but may it benefit all those we come in contact with. In full faith, so be it. Aho. So, with that said, Lisa, I am going to, you will be our representative, and everybody will be able to join through the camera here, of seeing in a moment this beautiful circle of energy, this sacred circle that we co-created. And the objects that I have, or the bones as we call them, are inside this basket. And I'm going to have you, and everybody's going to follow along with you and me, as blowing, taking that intention that we had during the invocation and blowing into the basket 3 times. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay. Wow. So I'm pretty wowed by this too, right off the bat. Just I feel like um, I invite you to first just kind of take an overall look. Like, what if you were hovering above and you were looking? You literally are. You're seeing a bird's eye view here. And just notice any objects that really pop for you, really stand out, and just feel like they're really speaking to you. This is nice. I think we've got almost the whole spread in. And of course, we spoke of this earlier that because of time, we're going to really hone in on some ancestors that can bring us some guidance here. And so where I like to begin with that is here is our intention. So if you could imagine, this is symbolic of you like a person. Imagine if you were standing on your feet and you're reaching out to the heavens, toward the heavens, and asking for this information to come down into your awareness. Now, I think this is pretty profound just for starters that look, this piece of coral is actually resting on this large nautilus shell, which is today is the full moon, and the full moon is in Cancer. So I've been thinking a lot about that and coming up to this day of like, wow, I think it's going to be very emotional. There's going to be a lot of emotions on the table for people. And this is just perfect because here is Nautilus representing water for us. And underneath Nautilus, I think this is really powerful too. Here is the angelic realms. And look at this. We've got a power animal here, which represents like eagle or condor. And he's looking out into the future, which I think is, I'm getting chills just saying it. So I think the message here with the water element too is that trust your emotions, right? Trust those feelings that you have, trust your gut. And another piece I think that's really powerful here is the 5, this dice showing a 5 right now, and it's resting on a piece of shell that represents the drum, which is representing our heart. So again, I say, trust your heart and let this idea of the 5, like the fullness of 5, bring that idea forward for you about motion. Just know things are moving, right? So even if, you're feeling a lot of emotions right now, and affected maybe emotionally by whether it's people, experiences, that are happening in the world affecting you, that it's really just, it's allowing us to stay in the flow of things. So just go with it, really trust the emotions, trust this idea of movement is always happening. Things are always cycling. And that's kind of the first piece with the intention, whatever this intention was with our ancestors. I would also say at the base of the intention, we've got our blueprint right here, and it's sacred, is like remembering the sacred in all things. And we also have an ancient ancestor on our mother's side, on the maternal lineage. So our maternal ancient ones are really here. I think, I'm getting emotional just thinking of it because I think this is like an unprecedented time, right? 2023 is ushering in the Aquarian age at last, and it's like all about remembering the sacred. And the blueprint is actually flipped over, which is really beautiful because I believe this idea of emotions being key here right now, and this being, we're in a watery sign, is that, it's all contained within us, right? To find whatever these questions are that we're all really asking, the answers are within, the medicine is within. And so we really want to take time for reflection or whatever that means to you to dive within. And a big piece of that diving in, I'm going to invite everybody to to look at this idea of this turquoise heart here. It represents soul retrieval or soul remembering. The idea of, oh, this is like amazing. Look at this symbology. Soul remembering, like what did you come in here to do? What is your mission on a soul level, right? Like your greater work in the world. And then, as I said, this sacred, look at it, it's like a bridge to the lock here. And the lock representing just something that maybe is a little out of reach, a little out of touch, or kind of hidden from us sometimes. So I think this was a beautiful invitation that when we feel that way, that, okay, what is it? Or if we feel a little stuck and something's not quite accessible to us, one of the key ways to access that is to go into the emotional field, our own emotional field, our internal emotions, right? And understand those and then look at those and see how they reflect this idea of remembering, a soul remembering, or a soul retrieval, which often in shamanic terms, if someone's having a soul retrieval, it's about bringing in these kind of lost parts of ourself, right? And gathering them up and bringing it back into wholeness, which is what we talked about here. So this is really beautiful. And then the key, now this is interesting to me too, because I know we're limited with time. So, oh, this is fascinating. So I just said key, right? And here's the key. So the key to the lock is right there. And the key, I believe, like in this question that you asked, Lisa, is two of the main ancestors and the shaman. And I would say whether it's a shaman of somebody that you're working with, or if you look at the shaman within, the shaman with, which is like the medicine, you being your own medicine, it's right here, touching the great mystery or the eye of God. But the two main ancestors that are closest to us, well, we've got a little collection here, so I'm going to just talk about these right here. But these two key ancestors, it's so beautiful how they're kind of paralleling each other, right? They're similar pieces. One is our maternal lineage, and the other is our paternal. So our mother and father of our great ones, right? Our great grandparents. Now, I know for some people that can be kind of a stretch, right? Because we may have never known our great grandparents. So again, this is where I want you to, just kind of use your imagination and think of your great ones, your great grandparents, great greats, great great greats. So allow yourself to kind of imagine, like, I sometimes have heard of people talk about the bones and doing readings, it's almost like you're entering a time machine. So if you can imagine, you're connecting with these great ones in both your maternal and your paternal lineage. And then you've got the power of the shaman right there. And in fact, the piece that would represent you, the viewer, you, the person receiving the reading, is right here, wide open, right? Almost touching this ancestor, the great ones on our father's side. And almost touching the shaman, almost touching, right? This eye of God, seeing things from this greater perspective. And, this is just, this little bone here is just, or shell is saying, we're on an evolutionary process of tapping back into our inner truth, right? Speaking our own truth. This is a little sword of truth. And this represents passion. This stone here is about fire, igniting a fire within ourselves and reconnecting with our star nations, which again is asking us to kind of expand our understanding of who we are. We're so much more, we're so much greater. And what is beautiful to me about this, I think this might have some resonance with you, Lisa, is this is our mother. So here is our mother with our crown chakra wide open and asking us, or offering this teaching or understanding of remembering that we are part of a greater family, right? You are the star that you are, right? Really acknowledging, embracing the star that you are. And that we actually, as we remember these things, right? As we have this soul remembering, or we are having soul retrieval work done. We are beginning to remember that we're cosmic citizens, right? We're not just these little humans having a daily human experience. We're so much bigger. So I feel like the core of this reading is really about acknowledging how much greater we are than we even can imagine at this point. And I think this is what this whole Aquarian age is ushering in for us. So we have the great ones. And also, what is significant here, I would say, is this little bone is representative of that which is not yet created. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your ancestors, the great ones, and really thinking of what's expanded. Also, remember, think about your future. What is not yet created? What is it that you are envisioning and hoping and wishing for? What is your heart's desire? And how do you see that unfolding? And then just come back around to the core essence. Like I said, Lisa knows we could talk for an hour and a half or 2 hours about all the details of these pieces and how they're interrelated. But we'll hone in on just this little diamond area here at the center. And I feel like I'm getting a reminder. This is so interesting. Here is the piece that represents your vision. So it's a key point here. Really start honing in on your vision, getting details, reflect on that every day if you can. And who is here but our ancestors, our grandmother on our mother's side? That's who this little red topped piece is. This bone here is our grandmother, our maternal grandmother. And this is our grandfather. So that is beautiful. I feel like, Lisa, one of the messages here is just how they've paired up. This is kind of unusual. There could be pieces here and there, but it's like it's almost like the message with the ancestors is saying, bring things back into balance, right? To this awareness of how the feminine is really guiding us to remember the greatness of who we are, the star family that we're connected to. And then our grandmother and grandfather on our mother's side, they're kind of in between them is nesting this little coin here, which represents Uranus. And Uranus, we know there's a lot of activity with Uranus right now and actually coming into this next astrology phase or cycle that we're in. And, Uranus is just reminding us that things are not always going to happen slow and steady, right? Uranus represents like lightning or a sudden bolt or a sudden aha. You know how sometimes you're just like, wow, I wasn't getting this at all. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just hits you. And it's almost like, what do they say? Like you grok it, right? Like you get it all at once. And so just know there's a lot of energy around Uranus. We're being influenced a lot by Uranus right now. And that reminder is there just to say, there's going to be bursts of information and highlights of let's like follow the breadcrumbs. You're going to get a little breadcrumb and then really hold on to that, really take that in, and then know that's going to lead you to the next piece. So that is to me so beautiful. And what also is nested in here is a timekeeper. And what I usually do then with a timekeeper, I've got another one and I look to see where that is. Oh, and this is really beautiful. He's out here. And so I love when this happens. One is facing up and one is facing down. And so if you can imagine, again, I invite you to like use your imagination. Like if you had a timekeeper on two ends of a spectrum and one was up and one was down, it's like the figure eight. It's like eternity, right? So we know that things are flowing. And so this information that we're getting here is really supporting us in that, again, remembering that everything is flowing, everything is in a cycle, and everything cycles in and out. And so we're just trusting that, yes, it's about going with the flow, trusting the emotions. And again, the ancestors, the pairing of the ancestors are just so beautiful. I think that's really a key piece to this question that we have about, what are the greater themes and understandings we can have. And also I wanted to point out around the lock here, we're seeing this little deer toe piece, which is representative of home. So I know this is a theme for many people right now, like where is home? Or they feel like home is, they want to move. or they're being forced to move. There's like a migration going on in our world right now. So home is a really key theme. So I just invite you to really, take a deeper look at, what does that represent to you? What elements are you looking for in home? And is your home really supporting you in fulfilling this, this mission, this vision, or whatever it is you came in the world to express at this time in this lifetime? And so I would say that that's the centerpiece of the reading. Do you have any questions, Lisa, that might bring clarity to someone else who might be wondering about some of these pieces?
Yeah, I'm just sort of wondering if there's a summary of what you've just explained, as sort of maybe a wrap up, so that people can sort of grok, as you mentioned, what was the big picture message that you feel has just
Mhm.
been delivered?
Okay, I would say the big picture message is, if you were going to like simplify some kind of inner guidance from the ancestors, let's say, it would be to a return to this understanding of the greater aspect of who you are, right? Not to get too caught up in the minutia, right? Sometimes, and to look at the wholeness, right? Like we need the masculine and we need the feminine. There are times where each one is needed and they balance each other out. So I think it's about sovereignty, including inclusivity. The unity is diversity. Remembering that to have to keep things moving. And then I would also say one of the key, to close it up, I would say one of the key um, notes or nudges maybe that are here is this three on the outside of this diamond, because that is about creativity. So, it's almost like reclaiming the creative spirit that you are, because we're creative beyond measure. I think this is something that's going to explode in the future. And then this next year or two or three is discoveries, inventions, new ways of communication, of transportation. That's all going to start happening with this Aquarian age. And it's about, like, it's about moving, it's about keeping everything moving and knowing that we are a creative source, right? We ourselves are creative and we could create anything. We're inventing this future, this vision. Because people ask that too. They'll say, people talk about the new earth. What does that mean? And how can ancestry support us in this creating a new earth? Well, how it's happening is that you're claiming this understanding of being a creator. You're a creator. Ultimately, right? Ultimately, you are co-creating with the universe. And so I would also say, it's about, back to what I said in the beginning, of remembering this isn't just a little flat piece, of cloth with some objects laying on it. It's multidimensional. So it's asking us to kind of look at the multidimensionality of ourselves, that we're so much bigger. And I think we're going to, we're going to have huge leaps and bounds with this James Webb telescope that's out there now. It's showing us what our universe looked like billions of years ago, because we know that light travels, right? We're looking at billions of years before us. We're getting information about where we came from. So I think this is definitely what the ancestors are trying to tell us, is like, keep your eye on the future, that you are a co-creator and you are creating the future. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
has been absolutely beautiful. You mentioned earlier the holographic universe, which I'm fascinated by that concept. And as you were talking, I was sort of feeling into that. That's part of the message that was coming through. And I may be off base here. You're the one doing the reading, but it felt like that's part of what they were saying, is that we really are all part of this big picture, and we all do have some impact in it. Was that at all accurate?
Absolutely. I think when I mentioned that our mother was sitting right next to the piece that was the star, it's like, I think that's what in other words, you're saying that, Lisa, is like, and the ancestors are trying to remind us, like, especially what the beauty of the feminine, of the mother. She is like the creator of everything, right? None of us would be here without mothers. And so I think you're right on, is that it's the reminder that we are so much greater. We are co-creating. And I think that this idea of unity and and yet being sovereign, each of us being unique, but by being unique and trusting in who you are, this whole everything's a hologram, right? I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, this is dating myself, but in science classes, you saw like the Earth and the Sun, and these little, this little demo of these planets going around in a circle. Well, we now know that it's so much more than that. We are literally spiraling through space, traveling, I don't know, millions of miles per hour. So, I mean, try to wrap that around your little brain that was just thinking, oh, I was just going in a circle. No, we're going in a spiral through the universe. And we now know that this universe is holographic. It's not just, it's not past, present, and future, the end. There is no end. We have no idea where this is taking us, right? But we do know we're expanding, and we know astrologically that we are, as a planet, we are going through the photon belt. So we are getting hit with light frequencies that we've never experienced before as humans on the planet. So keep that in mind when you think of the star that you are, which we know science has proven now too, that that's not just a saying. Our body, if we didn't have stars that fell to Earth in the evolution of the planet, we would not have oxygen. We would not have single cells, that turned into multiple creatures and beings and systems. So, yeah, I think you're right on, Lisa. It's like we have to it's almost funny, like go back and remember that, where we came from. And now our understanding of that is even getting bigger. Like I said, with this James Webb, if anybody wants to check it out, it's mind-boggling. The images that they're taking with this telescope now, because the James Webb telescope is out in space, so it's not being affected by the heat of the planet like the other missions were or the other satellites are. So it's seeing crystal clear out in space, and it's showing us pictures of where we came from billions of years ago. So I think that is inviting all of us to remember the greatness of who we are and how we do impact, who is to know really about how much we impact? Yes, we know we impact people and things and, events in our day-to-day life, but we are also impacting our future by now understanding and weaving in these really completely new understandings of our past. And ancestrally, we're doing the same thing. We're just, we're receiving this information now. And so it's really challenging us to say, like, I look at this too when I'm doing readings regularly, is that, it's not just me, one little moment. This is not all there is, right? There's so much more happening here, and it's happening. I'm not even able to see the impact that it's having on the greater field, right? Like this little, and me understanding or remembering the light that I am, that's impacting something in the past and the future, right? Our kids will not, and our grandchildren will not be looking at the same model, right, of what we knew scientifically, how we came into this world. So I know it has its ups and downs. I know many people are feeling that challenge now because the old ways are kind of crumbling. And I think that's why some of the structures that are falling apart are needing to. And that's why, the two ancestors, the grandmother, it was our grandmother and our grandfather on our mother's side, reminding us that we are really being deeply influenced by Uranian energies now, too, to remind us that everything doesn't happen just like slow and steady. It's okay. Things happen in little bursts, kind of how lightning hit, just something hits you and boom, and there's clarity. So just trust when it's more like what you're feeling might be shifting in the world right now for many is like things aren't just happening the way we used to think they happen. Boom, 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 like a little process of one, two, three. Now it's kind of like might be like huge bursts of information. And also remember that what happens with that is this opens up another, like it's almost like another little quantum leap. If you can all kind of use your imagination to think of it this way too, it's like this is when people say, oh, I got a download. It's like when you have those bursts of awareness, the field expands, and then information that's even was out there that you did not have access to before, suddenly you have access to it. So yeah, I think you're right on, Lisa, what you're saying, what you're
Wow,
picking up.
this has been so fascinating, and we are out of time. I would love to continue this conversation. In fact, let me go ahead and give your website. It's DesireeDemars.com in case anybody would like to, work with you further, to connect with you and get a reading on their own and maybe
Absolutely.
expand on their own understanding of this or whatever it is they're working on. So you do individual sessions. You
Yeah.
do that online so people can
Yeah,
contact you.
I work on Zoom, so you can be anywhere in the world. And through my website, you can find links to my YouTube page where I do weekly, usually I try to do once a week, do a reading for the week to kind of capture the essence of what's going on with ancestral energy for the week. And all kinds, and any other events. And I mean, I offer, mentorships, programs, it's all on my website. So all of those links are found, at DesireeDemars.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Desiree. Again, we could stay on for hours and just just tune in, but again, we're out of time. I want to thank you so much for sharing and just scratching the surface here. Thanks for being with us
Yeah,
today.
you're so welcome, Lisa. It's my pleasure and just a joy to be with you again. And everybody here at the Shift Network, I'm so grateful for, this information that you're bringing out to the world. It's wonderful.
Well,
Thank
it
you.
is absolutely my pleasure. And I want to remind everyone I've been talking with Desiree Demars, and I want to thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and this fascinating reading in the Ancestral Healing Summit.